Good afternoon. My name is Henriette Stöber. I'm a senior policy analyst at the European University Association, and I would like to very warmly welcome you to today's MSCA4Ukraine webinar on enhanced collaboration with the Ukrainian higher education and research sectors. This is part of an ongoing Marie Skłodowska Career Actions for Ukraine webinar series, a program that is being implemented by Scholars at Risk Europe, the European University Association, and the Alexander from Humboldt Foundation. Before we go into the webinar, there's a little housekeeping slide that we like to show at the beginning of this webinar. Please know also as an attendee, you can join the conversation, and I very warmly would like to encourage you to do so. There's various ways of reaching out to us and joining the discussion. First of all, on the right-hand side of your screen, you see the chat function. Here you can say hello, tell us where you're from, which university, which institute, etc. And here you can also tell us if you are experiencing any technical issues, and our team in the background can then try and help you resolve those. Most importantly, we have a Q&A function. Here, you can ask questions to our speakers throughout the webinar, and I really would like to, I hope that I will see many questions coming up during the 1 hour that we're together. One thing that is currently not on the housekeeping slide, because it's new, but very relevant perhaps today as well, is that at the bottom of your screen, you will find a little button CC closed captions. This is an automatic, captioning of what we are saying in English language, but perhaps it is helpful for some. Last but not least, we also have an automatic survey that comes after all of our webinars, very brief. If you want to share your feedback with us, you're more than welcome to do so there. Now, I think by signing up for the MSCA4Ukraine webinar, you pretty much probably all are aware what this program is about. So I'm just going to sum it up in this one slide here. The Marie Skłodowska Career Actions for Ukraine was established as part of the EU's response to the Russian invasion of Ukraine. With this program, we developed a new fellowship, one of its kind in the EU's funding frameworks, that supports researchers that are displaced due to the war in Ukraine, and hoping to enable them to continue their work at higher education institutions and research institutes in European Union states, but also Horizon Europe associated countries. Our fellows are at their host institutions between 6 months and 2 years, and they're funded through the normal MSCA rules and rates. You can see here on the right-hand slide that we had so far 2 calls under this program, and together in these 2 calls we are currently funding or have funded 176 researchers that really cover all domains of research and innovation. All disciplines are represented here. Now, I would like to mention right at the beginning, because I have a feeling that there might be questions coming up around this, that there will indeed be another call for MSCA4Ukraine fellowships. However, at the moment, we cannot offer you any concrete information about this. The European Commission has issued a call for project management last year. This is currently under evaluation, and it is probably likely to say, or safe to say, that there will be another call in 2026. But unfortunately, I cannot tell you when this is actually going to happen. Right, but back to the MSCA4Ukraine program overall. Here on the slides, you see that we are also doing other things besides fellowships. There's a help desk, there's matchmaking. We do various events online and in person, bringing together our fellows, trying to offer career development, networking opportunities, and so on. And there's also some support for reintegration for those that are already now becoming alumni of the MSCA4Ukraine program. The last point my colleague from Scholars at Risk Europe can tell you more about. So I think this is a good time to introduce our panel of speakers today. We are joined today by Gianna Hegarty. She is the MSCA4Ukraine Program Officer at Scholars at Risk Europe, which itself is hosted at Maynooth University in Ireland. Now, Gianna has a strong background in the higher education and research sector. She has worked in various different kinds of positions at Trinity College, as well as Maynooth University in Ireland. And she also has worked, and apologies for my pronunciation, at Żytomir Ivan Franko State University in Ukraine. She represents basically the project consortium in today's webinar. But as the topic of today's webinar is collaboration between home and host institution under MSCA for Ukraine, we would like to give you, in a way, a case study or introduce a case study. And I have invited the trio of a typical MSCA fellowship to this webinar as well. So I'm very happy to be joined here today as well by Volodymyr Metelytsia. Volodymyr is a Doctor of Economic Sciences and a professor at the State Tax University in Ukraine. And he's also research associate at the Leibniz Institute of Agricultural Development and Transition Economies, for short, IAMO, in Germany. And he has carried out at IAMO an MSCA for Ukraine fellowship, which he will tell us more about. But this fellowship also developed into something else in terms of collaboration. And so we are also joined here today by two of his colleagues. First of all, I would like to welcome Taras Gagaryuk, who is a senior researcher at IAMO, the Leibniz Institute in Germany. And Taras' research lies at the intersection of agricultural economics, policy analysis, and strategic management. And he has extensive experience in Central and Eastern Europe, as well as Central Asia in this context of his research. And last but not least, we are also joined by Fedir Bilotsky, who is the head of international relations at the State Tax University in Ukraine. His background, his degrees are from Kiev National Economic University and a higher education institution in the UK, where he has worked mostly in the business sector and specializing in real estate. Welcome to all of our speakers today. And with this, I would like to actually open the content part of this webinar and give the floor first to my colleague Gianna from Scholars at Risk Europe, who will set a bit the scene for us and tell us a bit more about how the MSCA for Ukraine fellows and their host universities collaborate with institutions, but also with the overall research and innovation sector in Ukraine. Gianna, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for that introduction, Henrietta. And I'd also like to take a moment just to thank the other presenters and all of the attendees. I see we're up to 198. That is amazing. And the rest of the EUA team for organizing what I'm sure will be a very interesting webinar. So as Henrietta mentioned, my name is Gianna Hegarty, and I am the Program Officer for Scholars at Risk Europe. Now, as Henrietta mentioned, perfect. I'll be giving a little bit of a brief overview regarding the general practice for collaboration between our MSCA for Ukraine fellows and institutions in Ukraine. Now, this idea of collaboration was really built into the MSCA for Ukraine program from the very beginning. And as you can see, appears in many of our program objectives. So for example, a coordination between EU and Ukrainian research and innovation sectors, the facilitation of reintegration if and when safe conditions are met for our fellows and researchers, and countering this idea of brain drain. We also built measures into the program to specifically capture this information and these examples of cooperation. This actually starts with our application process. When an applicant applies to MSCA for Ukraine, we actually ask that they include a little statement that's just outlining how they propose to maintain connections with Ukrainian institutions during their fellowship. Once we have our fellows, they do have reporting duties. So each fellow is required to submit an interim report, generally about halfway through their fellowship. So most of our fellowships are 2 years. So that would be around the completion of year 1, and a final report. Now, in both of these reports, we also capture information regarding if the fellow collaborated with a Ukrainian institution and what types of activities were involved in that collaboration. So kind of switching over to an overview of the collaboration activities. So for the rest of the presentation, I will be focusing on our cohort 1 fellows. So this is a group of 125 fellows, the majority of whom have completed their fellowships generally between the spring, summer, and autumn of 2025, so this year. As such, we haven't had time to really analyze their final reports. So what I'll be presenting on is what we've actually, the data we've collected from their interim reports. So if I can, there we go. So our interim reports, we had about 87 fellows, or 70%, indicate that they had cooperated with a Ukrainian institution during their fellowships. We had 24 fellows state that they had co-authored a publication with either a Ukrainian institution or a Ukrainian colleague. We had 12 secondments that actually took place in Ukraine with Ukrainian institutions. And we also had reported 5 new partnerships between MSCA4Ukraine host institutions and home institutions, one of which we will be hearing from momentarily. So, taking a look at these cooperating institutions. In our interim reports, we had 52 individual Ukrainian institutions reported as cooperating partners. Now, the majority of these were located in Kyiv, Lviv, and Kharkiv. But as you can see from this chart on the slide, they really do kind of span the breadth of Ukraine. And we have cooperating institutions in most oblasts. We also were kind of expecting that the majority of our cooperating institutions would be in the higher education sector. And they were, but we also got cited with quite a few cooperating institutions that were government bodies. So as you can see here, we have the Rada, different government ministries, the Constitutional Court of Ukraine, etc. We also had cited quite a few non-government organizations, more kind of like civil organizations. So museums, clubs, societies, unions. So the cooperation and collaboration between MSCA4Ukraine fellows really ended up being broader than just with the higher education sector in Ukraine. Now, what do these activities look like? So again, in our interim reports, we had reported about 167 individual instances of cooperation. Now, by far, the majority of these instances were remote work and teaching and research collaboration. Those two groups equaled about 50% of reported incidents of cooperation. However, we also had about 18% reported double affiliations, 17% reported the supervision of students from undergrad all the way up through doctoral. We had 10% report the co-organization of events or conferences, and about 5% cited the engagement with some of these Ukrainian civil organizations. Now, we also, from time to time, survey our fellows. So in the beginning of 2025, we issued our intention to return to Ukraine survey. We received about 65 responses, which was about 52% of our fellows. We were very happy with that response rate. Out of those, 18 stated, yes, I intend to return to Ukraine. 28 stated, no, not at this time. And 19 stated that they were unsure. Now, for our purposes here today, of note, 58 of those 65 cited that they had engaged with Ukrainian institutions, and that was about 89% of all respondents. Furthermore, we had 56 fellows, about 86%, state that they intended to remain connected to their host institution after the end of their fellowship. Now, if you can turn your attention to the lower graph on this slide, that shows the types of activities that were reported in the survey. Now, of note, these responses really correlate quite well to the responses that we received in the interim reports. The majority report research collaboration, teaching, joint publications, the supervision of doctoral students, conferences, and equipment sharing. Now, we were also interested to see if within these 3 groups, so yes, I intend to return, no, not at this time, or unsure, the percentage of respondents that also indicated cooperation with Ukrainian institution. And what we found was quite interesting. About 1/3 of each of the groups stated that they had cooperated with Ukrainian institution. So we kind of took that as even fellows that are unsure if they will return or are stating that not at this time, they don't intend. Still 1/3 of that group, they're building these connections, they're establishing these cooperative pathways. And we thought that was quite interesting. To very briefly wrap up, a few conclusions. The majority of our fellows do engage with Ukrainian institutions. The majority of this activity is remote work, and it is focused on teaching and research activities. The cooperation really spans different sectors of society. Again, not only in the higher education sector or world, but kind of branches out into these wider areas of government involvement, of engagement with civic organizations. And lastly, the MSCA4Ukraine really does encourage and facilitate brain circulation. Now, this is my contact information. If anyone would like to ask any questions after today regarding this presentation or anything else about MSCA4Ukraine, please feel free. Before I hand it back over to Henrietta, I would just like to once again thank the entire EUA team, my fellow speakers in this webinar, and the wider audience for tuning in today and participating in this webinar. Thank you very much for your time and attention, and back to you, Henrietta.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Gianna, for this very interesting overview, and indeed really underlining the fact that we are going beyond the individual fellowship in terms of impact. But I don't see any content questions to you right now in the Q&A, but I would like to then quickly ask one just to clarify, because people might have been wondering. Would you please explain a bit more what those secondments are about? How does that work? What our researchers are doing there?
Absolutely. So as part of our fellowships, researchers can take a secondment, which is basically like a research trip to a different university. It can be up to 1/3 of the time of their fellowships. Now, the majority of those fellows would be taking secondments at other universities in the EU. But as I mentioned, we did have 12 fellows that took that time, connected with the Ukrainian institution, and traveled to Ukraine to spend that time building those connections. A lot of times, secondments would facilitate more lasting partnerships, research connections, all of the activities that I just spoke to, joint publications, faculty visits. Yeah, so it's a really great way to establish a really like concrete working partnership. So we were very happy and pleased when we saw that 12 of our fellows ended up doing secondments in Ukraine.
Super, thanks so much, Gianna.
Thank you.
I would like to then move on to the second round, so to say, of this webinar and hear about an example of collaboration, really. And as I had mentioned before, we are joined by one of our MSCA4Ukraine fellows, his host institute and his, let's call, home institution. And we would like to start with Volodymyr, our fellow, to give us a brief overview of his work under MSCA4Ukraine and around it, and how the collaboration with his institute and university has been established. Volodymyr, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Can I ask about, yes, thank you for sharing the presentation. Do you see my presentation?
Yes, we do.
I try to change the slides, but I cannot at this moment. Okay, my name is Volodymyr Metelytsia. I am a professor at the Department of Accounting and Audit at the State Tax University in Irpin, Ukraine. And I am a research fellow at the Leibniz Institute of Agricultural Development in Transition Economies, IAMO, in Halle, Germany. My academic career began in 2005 at the National Agrarian University in Kyiv, where I defended my PhD dissertation. In 2016 at the Institute of Agrarian Economics in Kyiv, I defended my dissertation for the degree of Doctor of Economic Sciences. Since 2019, I have been working at the State Tax University, or shortly STU. After the start of the full-scale invasion, I was looking for an opportunity to continue my academic work in safe conditions while remaining useful to Ukrainian science. That is why I applied for the MSCA4Ukraine program, which provided such an opportunity. I try to share next slide. They cannot. Yeah. My research project was entitled Sustainability Reporting and Access to Capital for Post-War Recovery of Agricultural Enterprises in Ukraine. In simple terms, I studied how Ukrainian agricultural enterprises can use environmental, social, and governance reporting to attract green financing for their post-war recovery and build back better. During the project, I developed a public online platform, SR platform, which combines reporting, training, and analytics. You can see QR code of SR platform at the right part of this slide. Under the supervision of my academic mentor, Dr. Taras Gagalyuk, I also prepared a practical guide, report on sustainable development and investment in agricultural sector of Ukraine. You can see at the left part of the slide QR code of this guide. I organized and conducted 6 webinars with the participation of more than 1,000 Ukrainian agricultural enterprises. In addition, I published 13 scientific papers and 2 conference abstracts and presented my research findings at the 2 seminars of the European Association of Agricultural Economics in 2024. In cooperation with the Swedish University of Agricultural Sciences, I studied a new scientific method, discrete choice experiment. I also completed professional practice at IAK Agrar Consulting in Leipzig, Germany, at Rice Company in Bern, Switzerland. Furthermore, I took part in several international forums, including the Philip Schwarz forums, Inspire Europe forums, and IAMO forums. Next slide. About cooperation. To ensure the continuity of cooperation, in October 2023, a memorandum of cooperation was signed between IAMO and the State Tax University, STU. This memorandum provides for joint research activities, educational programs, academic mobility, and cultural exchange. This document has become an institutional foundation for the future AHIV collaboration between our institutions. Next slide. secondment agreement. As part of the project I carry out a secondment, I mean a research visit to Ukraine, and this secondment was divided into 3 stages between December 2023 and May 2024. During this period, a number of scientific and educational activities were conducted aimed at transferring knowledge to Ukraine. In January 2024, I held a meeting at the Ministry of Finance of Ukraine, where I presented my own sustainability reporting platform. In February 2024, I presented the ESGR report at the meeting of the Academic Council of the State-X University. In May 2024, together with researchers from STU, we prepared a joint scientific paper. Next slide. In May 2024, I also took part in the 3rd International Scientific and Practical Conference, which was held in Irpin in May. I gave 2 open lectures for students. The first was about methodology of the discrete choice experiment, and the second was about functioning of the sustainability reporting platform. During the secondment, I also organized a round table with researchers from the State-X University. At this round table, we discussed the prospects of establishing a joint sustainability laboratory. Next slide. I want to say that information about all project achievements was regularly published on the websites of IAMO and the STU, as well as on social media. After the completion of the project, the cooperation between IAMO and STU continues. First of all, the research results have been used in developing the educational and methodological framework for PhD students in specialty accounting and taxation. In addition, IAMO researchers have joined the editorial board of the Ukrainian Economic Journal, published by the STU. Next slide. In conclusion, I want to say that MSCA4Ukraine program gave me a chance to continue my academic work during the war. It also showed through European solidarity that supports Ukrainian science in hard times. This project helped create useful research and unite people with one goal: to make Ukraine's post-war recovery green, responsible, and European. Thank you for your attention.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for the summary and for briefly introducing your very interesting research. By the way, EUA currently has the year of sustainability, so it fits also in various other things that we're working on. I see that there's a question coming in now, but let me see what it's about. Oh, it is about the new call. Okay, apologies then. I would like to warmly encourage all participants to ask questions to our speakers. Volodymyr, I would have a question and like to ask you to elaborate more about what you said on building back better, but perhaps we can put a pin in this one and let first your colleagues from IAMO and STU speak before we come back to this point that you phrased so very nicely indeed. So with that, I would like to hand over to Taras from IAMO, the Leibniz Institute. And Taras, I would like to ask you to quickly tell us about how you came to apply for supporting a researcher under MSCA4Ukraine and how your institute overall collaborates with the region. Floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Henrietta, for the invitation and the opportunity to share our experience. As you mentioned, I represent the Leibniz Institute of Agricultural Development in Transition Economies, in short, IAMO, which is part of the Leibniz Association, one of Germany's leading research networks, bringing together over 90 institutes across disciplines. And IAMO, in particular, focuses on the structural development and transformation of agriculture and rural areas in transition economies, particularly in Central and Eastern Europe, Central Asia, and of course, Ukraine. So our decision to host an MSCA fellow, Dr. Volodymyr Metelytsia, was actually a natural continuation of the IAMO's long-standing cooperation with Ukrainian researchers and institutions, and with Volodymyr personally. So even before the full-scale Russian invasion, we had extensive collaborative networks in Ukraine, including joint projects, field work, conferences, and so on. So, for instance, the IAMO's International Research Group Ukraine has served and continues to serve as a hub for exchange on topics of agricultural transformation, sustainability, resilience, and European integration of Ukraine. And we are collaborating with various educational institutions in Ukraine, including the Kyiv School of Economics, the National University of Life and Environmental Sciences of Ukraine, the Polisa National University, and many others. Apart from them, our collaborative networks go beyond just academia. We also cooperate with NGOs like the Ukrainian Agribusiness Club, the Ukrainian Agrarian Confederation, and others. And also we are involved in advising the Ukrainian government through multilateral and bilateral cooperation projects of the EU and Germany. Yeah, however, the full-scale Russian invasion of Ukraine has changed profoundly the nature and urgency of this collaboration. And what was once mainly academic cooperation has become a form of solidarity and institutional support. So therefore, the MSCA4Ukraine program has offered a valuable framework to formalize and strengthen these ties. Together with the State Tax University, STU, the home university of Volodymyr, we have built a partnership which goes beyond individual research. It connects, for example, institutional development, capacity building, and post-war recovery efforts. So we see this not only as an act of solidarity, but also as an opportunity to co-create knowledge on relevant issues of Ukraine's green and digital recovery and EU integration. And in this context, the Memorandum of Cooperation with STU, which Volodymyr mentioned, provides a sustainable foundation for this engagement, and it turns our crisis response into a long-term collaborative model. And yeah, these are actually the points that I wanted to mention on this matter, and that's how our progress in building the collaborative long-term networks in Ukraine is going on. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Taras. A very interesting overview. Now, you're part of the Leibniz Association. Are you aware of any other activities along those lines? Any other MSCA fellows hosted? perhaps this is a question to Gianna. Are there, besides your institute, any activities at the central level of the association that you're aware of?
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, regarding the MSCA4Ukraine fellows, I'm not quite aware because these are different, various institutions that are part of the Leibniz Association. However, at the association level, the Leibniz Society, the Leibniz Association, is doing a lot to strengthen cooperation with Ukrainian partners, especially on capacity building or institutional development. So even IAMO, okay, I wanted to probably mention this at a different point, but yeah, as a concrete step toward this vision, toward these efforts, IAMO is establishing a Leibniz Center for Agri-Food Economics in Kiev, together with the Kiev School of Economics, which is going to be launched in the year 2027, if safety conditions allow. It will employ several associate professors, postdocs, and PhD students. So, and that's how we see the response to this quest for more strategic, tight collaboration with Ukrainian partners, which comes from them, because it's mutual.
Indeed.
And I think the MSCA4Ukraine program promotes this mutuality, actually. So, thank you.
Wonderful, thank you so much. I would then like to hand over to Fedir from State Text University in Ukraine, and to briefly introduce your institution, of course, and then tell us a bit more about international collaboration, as you are part of the international team at your institution. Fedir, the floor is yours.
Hi to everyone. Nice to see you all. First of all, thanks for such opportunity to be a part of today's event. Today I'm representing Ukrainian State Text University. We're a specialized higher education institution in Ukraine, in European city. We offer programs in different programs in taxation, public finance, accounting, law, and related fields. STU has a history of 100 years in educating experts in fiscal and financial systems. There are about 5,000 students so far now. In university, several hundred academic staff and many postgraduate students. Before the full invasion of Russian Federation, our university, if I'm not mistaken, accounted more than 14,000 students. So now it is about 5,000 students. The university participates in international programs, cooperates with foreign institutions, organizes academic mobility and joint projects. It has been adopting the modern educational standards, integrating digital technologies, and emphasizing scientific research and innovation. In terms of current situation, Irpin was one of the cities severely affected in the early stages of Russian full-scale invasion on March 2022. The main administrative building of the State Text University was completely destroyed, 100%. Many other buildings, dormitories, and sport complex also suffered partial or full damage. Despite these damages, the university resumed its educational process quickly via remote learning or with temporary repairs, so students could continue their learning. The city and university also functioned as a humanitarian hubs during and after occupation. The university basement sheltered civilians and it served in common relief roles. Rebuilding is now underway. The international architectural competition was held to design the new main campus building. The winner was a well-known international company, Canadian company Stantec. By the way, it is probably one of the biggest, even maybe the biggest architectural bureau in the world. They provided unbelievable project. If we could realize it would be a dream, and now it looks fantastic. So I hope European will get this building. Also, we always think about modernization, restoring infrastructure, and so on. Surely, Russian invasion impacted international collaboration at STU. War disrupted normal operations, physical damage to campus, displacement, interruptions to in-person classes. That forced that university moved to remote modalities and to just studies. Some international collaborations, for example, with foreign partners, were delayed or third in terms of security, infrastructure damage, and logistical challenges. At the same time, new opportunities emerged. STU is increasingly involved in European Union-wide and international funded projects that are oriented to recovery, sustainability, science for peace, etc. For example, STU is a partner of MSCA4Ukraine program in cooperation with the IAMO. The war has heightened international interest in supporting Ukrainian universities with grants, cooperation assignments, and reconstruction projects. This has led to new memorandum of understanding with foreign institutions. With regards to memorandum of cooperation between STU and the IAMO, STU and the IAMO signed a memorandum of cooperation as a formal partnership to enhance research, educational, and scientific exchange. One concrete example is STU participation in MSCA4Ukraine project in partnership with the IAMO. In this project, STU, together with the IAMO and other partners, investigates how Ukrainian agricultural enterprises can access sustainable finance, develop sustainability reporting, etc. The memorandum aims to provide joint opportunities, seminars, workshops, webinars, academic mobility, sharing of research methodologies, possibility mutual supervision of these exchanges of staff and students. It was established in the context of growing needs for scientific collaboration in the war and post-war period, with increased support from international donors and institutions to help rebuild and strengthen capacities. That's so far, I guess. I guess that's it. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
QA.
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much, Fedor. And our participants seem to be quite shy in the Q&A, apparently. However, there seems to be some in-depth networking going on in the chat function. I cannot see any particular questions now, but thank you so much, Fedor, for underlining the challenges that your university faces, but also the opportunities, even though small and perhaps future bigger ones that came along with this awful situation that you are facing in Ukraine. And for also giving us more details on the memorandum of understanding. And perhaps we can now open the floor to all of our speakers and have a little bit a discussion on the future of collaboration in a bit more detail. So, you know, in specific terms, the question would be how institutes are going to continue collaborating. Perhaps you can share some more details on the Memorandum of Understanding, but also in broader terms. So for other institutions and institutes in Europe and Ukraine, how can international partnerships help Ukrainian institutions and the sector overall, not just today, but also, as Volodymyr put it so nicely, in the future, in terms of building back better. So I threw a lot of questions at you, apologies. I will perhaps start. Shall we start with Fedor? Would you like to give us some more details about the Memorandum of Understanding? What concrete steps are you planning for your future collaboration there?
I guess this question, it would be more appropriate to answer and to start with Volodymyr Metelytsia.
Okay.
So I will give him the first first term.
Thank
I'll
you.
continue probably.
We cannot hear.
I can't hear you.
Do you hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Yeah.
From my side, as an MSCA4Ukraine alumni, I plan to continue our cooperation between IAMO and STU. We are jointly preparing scientific publications, holding regular online meetings, and involving students in training courses and workshops on ESG reporting. Our goal is to develop a joint sustainability laboratory and future promote green and responsible recovery of Ukraine's agriculture.
Very interesting. Thank you. Thank you so much. Fedir or Taras, would you like to comment on this in terms of future collaboration between your institutions?
Yes, sure. I can add on that. Our collaboration with the STU has shown that this everyday work can transform into something bigger. And especially we are currently, we plan to expand our collaboration on what we've been working together so far. First, we are developing joint research projects on topics such as sustainable management of agricultural enterprises, digitalization, access to green finance for recovery, areas that can directly contribute to Ukraine's recovery and EU alignment. And some of these projects are already running, so together with Volodymyr. Other projects have been applied for. We are waiting for the response from the funding agencies. And also some of the projects are in the pipeline. So what I mean, this work in the framework of the MSCA4Ukraine provides an opportunity also to learn how and to work further on promoting and supporting and institutionalizing these cooperations via EU-Ukraine joint research projects. Second, we also plan joint training and capacity building activities, for example, guest lectures, staff exchanges. However, since this memorandum has been signed just recently before the end of Volodymyr Fellowship in terms of the MSCA4Ukraine, we still haven't have much or many exchanges, but this work is in preparation. And also we plan to have for example, short courses on sustainability assessment and data-driven decision-making in Ukraine, through which we can share our expertise and primarily methodological knowledge with the Ukrainian colleagues. And actually, the third point, we see this collaboration as a template for broader engagement with other universities in Ukraine. And there, well, also Leibniz Association comes into play. IAMO is promoting similar partnerships with other universities in Ukraine to build an open and polycentric network of cooperation between Germany and Ukraine. As I mentioned, the concrete step was this endeavor, initiative of our institute to establish a Leibniz Center for Agri-Food Economics in Kiev together with the support of the Leibniz Association. And it will be based at the premises of the Kiev School of Economics. So in short, our objective is to move from emergency support to a strategic partnership with the Ukrainian stakeholders, which would strengthen the academic institutions in Ukraine and integrate them into the European research landscape. And we see this as a mutual process because Ukrainian partners have also recognized that this is not only about short-term exchanges, research stays, but this is a continuous work, and they're equally eager to build truly strategic, long-term and action-oriented collaborations. Yeah, that's what I observe through this collaboration with Volodymyr and STU.
Wonderful, thank you. That was very well put indeed.
And add?
Of course, please.
I can add that now I'm Philip Schwarz Fellow, the project founded by Alexander von der Humboldt Foundation, 2 years project. So that's why I can say that MSCA4Ukraine was a base for continuing scientific research.
Very good. I'm very happy to hear that indeed. And you know that the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation is actually a project partner in this program, and the very same people that work in Philip Schwarz are actually also part of this very team, just not here today, perhaps still listening in, or at least they will watch the recording. So this is very good news indeed. I think I would like to also direct a question towards Gianna. Gianna, you might have noticed that in the Q&A there are actually various, let's say, operational questions about MSCA. But before we go to those, could I just ask you a more broader question in terms of collaboration and looking towards the future? As you had mentioned, the intentions to return from various of our fellows, soon to be alumni and so on. Could you say a couple of words on what the program is planning to do to support this?
Absolutely. So I think kind of the initial kind of group of activities that we envisioned to support eventual reintegration was kind of allowing our fellows the space to establish these connections, to potentially have secondments in Ukraine, to kind of feel supported to engage in these new partnerships and these new working relationships. But we also are doing a few other things. So for example, on our website, we try to keep very up to date with any resources that are available for any researchers in, or Ukrainian researchers that are in the EU. We tend to try to identify potential funding sources for fellows that may be returning to Ukraine. We also have been developing relationships with potential stakeholders in Ukraine that will allow us to identify resources in Ukraine and help disseminate that information. So the National Research Foundation in Ukraine, the National Academy of Sciences, the Horizon Europe office in Kyiv. So I think a lot of how we view ourselves is kind of a source of information for our fellows that are looking to return. And of course, we also, if any fellows contact us directly, we try to provide the relevant information in any way that we can. And if, Henrietta, if I may also say very quickly, I was informed that we actually have 3 fellows, and now it's my chance to apologize for pronunciation because I have not a word of German. Leibniz. Yep. We have 3 fellows actually at the Leibniz institution. So yes,
wonderful.
Absolutely.
Very good, and thanks for the interesting summary. And I hope these things will be found useful. But to Volodymyr and also all of our fellows and fellows to listen, do let us know what else we can do to support you in any way, of course. I would like to pick up now a question from the Q&A. We only have 5 minutes left, but let's try this one before we close. And this one really could go to any one of you, so whoever wishes to go first. What advice would you give for establishing new connections for collaboration? And if we perhaps see it the other way around, what would be useful for Ukrainian institutions in terms of international collaboration, if I may? This question came from Oksana Valetska. So would anyone like to take this one? Tips to establish new connections for collaboration between Ukraine and Horizon Europe countries?
You know, during my presentations, I saw many colleagues not from EU countries, but also from Ukraine. So that is a good bridge where you can find new connections and possibilities of collaboration, actually. For example, I'm talking about seminars of Europe Association of Agriculture Economies, for example.
Okay. Thank you. Anything from Feder or Taras on establishing new collaboration? What would you find useful from the viewpoint of your university or institute? Oh, we can.
Collaboration. We're always open for new collaboration. We're always looking for opportunities for our students, for our teachers, for our tutors, for our academic personnel. So we're always open. We're always trying to look around and are ready for continuing this process. So I guess we have to work every day to develop ourselves, to develop our university, to develop our country. So, I mean, in terms of this, we do it every day. As far as I understood the question, thank you.
Can I add a few words? It's very important to have support from Ministry of Education and Science from Ukraine. Because you know we have some limitation about crossing border for men, for example. So that's why it is very important to find understanding with our ministry.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. And I can confirm this also from the side of the project consortium. When the project was initially established, we were, of course, instantly aware of the issue, and we tried to have a dialogue over the years with the ministry, with some results, but of course also limitations from their end as well. Yeah. So we have 2 more minutes left. So there remains quite a number of very specific MSCA for Ukraine fellowship questions that those people that asked the questions, apologies that I do not pick them up. Gianna actually shared her email address. So sorry, Gianna, I will put this under you. She will indeed be in a position to answer all those questions, or just go to our website and find the general MSCA for Ukraine, help desk, because these are very technical questions around secondments and eligibility. Indeed, there are different rules at host institutions. This seems to be an issue that comes up several times in the Q&A with regards to whether they can actually send people that they have on contract back to Ukraine, even though a university might be in a safe space or considered safe by the researcher, but these are, of course, in the remit of the institute or university that is hosting and holding the contract. But everything else, I very much invite you to contact our team. And I would like to now thank all of our speakers here today for their contributions. It was really interesting. And I hope that with this webinar, we managed to show that MSCA for Ukraine goes indeed beyond fellowships, that, Taras, I'm going to quote you here, that we're trying to build a template for future engagement and collaboration. And it is a small contribution of the overall EU's contribution as a reaction to the invasion. And I hope that also in the future it will be found very useful, not just for our fellows, but of course also for their home and host institutions. So with this, I would like to close today's webinar. Thank you so much for your attention and have a lovely afternoon and all the best. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.